Happy Friday, beautiful people, and hello to you all out there tuning in for your first sip of the weekend. You're tuned into your happy hour with Friday Feels. We're celebrating all you working professionals out there doing your crazy craft, embracing the beauty of being human and connecting authentically. We're your host, Sarja Nicole, and we're living and working around the world. We're holding space for you and keeping it raw and real as we share fresh content with you every week. Follow us on LinkedIn at Friday Feels and on Instagram at These Friday Feels for updates throughout the week.
In our last episode, we chatted to Karen KJ Johnson, who is a corporate executive, community leader, motivational speaker, and entrepreneur. In her larger-than-life way, Karen shared her tips on how following her passion and showing up authentically has allowed her to take on more in her day-to-day and even endure through exhaustion. If you're feeling down and out this week, I highly recommend you checking it out.
And for this week's episode, we are chatting with trailblazer Debbie Ann Seemungal, an actress, dancer, writer, filmmaker, entrepreneur, wife, and mom of twins. Debbie has left her corporate job to follow her passions and is currently spearheading Beyond Studios, a film and theatre production company committed to empowering underrepresented cultures in entertainment. We are so excited to have her come on and share her journey with us. A very big welcome to you, Debbie. It is so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, welcome. We're super excited to chat with you this month on our month's topic, Enduring Through Exhaustion. We have all been there and really curious, what the topic means to you. Tell us a little bit about your journey and where you're based and what you do and what Enduring Through Exhaustion has meant to you over the years.
Yeah, gosh, the word exhausted is just, it's such an emotional word, and when we talked about what this topic was going to be this month, I think for me, exhaustion is just my natural MO these days. It's just, you're just tired all the time. Being a mom of twins, just being a mom, I would say, even if, someone has a one baby, 2, 3, 4, it's just tiring. And I think on top of that, the emotional aspect comes from not just balancing your kids, but I'm also a wife. So being that as well, because that's a completely different role. And then on top of that, trying to think of myself. So still trying to be healthy, hit the gym when I can, making sure that I'm thinking about myself and my career, because you can really get lost in the moment of being a mom. And I think I did for a minute until I caught myself and I was like, okay, wait, I need to think about myself at some point. So all of that put together, it's just a really emotional ride because you just are so tired. And when 8 o'clock hits, my husband is so funny. He's like, you fall asleep before your head even hits the pillow. When 8 o'clock hits and those kids go to bed, it's like I am shut down. I refuse to do any work after that. I may lay in my bed and scroll through Instagram just to catch up on the day, but that's it. And I will just maybe meditate and go straight to sleep. I'm in bed by 9:30 because I'm up at 5:30 to try to hit the gym some morning. So all of it is just really tiring. But I think what gets me through it is the fact that I do love every aspect of it, right? My kids are really enjoyable. Being married to my husband is great. And then I'm following my passion, which is even more amazing, right? Because it's hard for people to do all of it. And I am. As tiring as it is, it gives me energy to know that I'm following a dream that has always been my dream, which a lot of people have told me when you become a mom, those dreams go away, right? Those aspirations go away. You need to put them behind you. You have to focus on being a mom. But I refuse to fall into that category. And I refuse to show my children that that's a thing, right? That no, when you become a parent, any parts of your life changes, you can still follow your dreams. You just make it all work. So they have been a huge inspiration for me to prove the societal, I don't even know, rules or whatever it is that society tends to put on us as moms, as women, on how we're supposed to be and do. And I refuse to live by that. So as exhausted as I am, I'm going to prove it wrong. That's my goal.
So we've known each other for a really long time, and it's really awesome to see, how you've blossomed throughout the years. And tell us a little bit about what you're working on your professional journey. What brought you here? I know you used to work in corporate for a while, and you mentioned following your passion now. So what does that mean for you?
Well, I've had a sort of a roller coaster of a life. I've always been a performer ever since my dad tells me when I was 2 years old, I started dancing with my grandfather. And I've always, if there's a show, I'm there, right? I'm performing, I'm dancing, I'm singing, I'm acting, I'm doing all kinds of things. I'm always on stage. And that's really been where my passion has always been. Unfortunately, we Saj, we grew up in a culture that doesn't foster that, right? They tend to ask you to be more on the side of, the professional side, business or medicine or et cetera, et cetera. So it's not something that's really celebrated. So when I got in college, I studied theater, and then I started a production company 20 years ago with my best friend Frankie, and we were in it. Like he was a filmmaker, I was an actress, and we just wanted to bring film and theater to the West Indian community because it wasn't something that was there. We did a lot of singing and dancing, but the film part of it came from Bollywood, and that's where we would see, we would kind of see Indians on TV, not necessarily Indo-Caribbeans, but just Indians. And so we created this platform where we can find Indo-Caribbean individuals who wanted to be a part of entertainment. And we did that for 10 years, and it was amazing. And unfortunately, Frankie passed away 10 years ago. And when he did, I sort of took a step back. I wasn't sure if I could do it alone without him. And so I went back to school. I got a master's degree in communications and PR. And I've been in healthcare also for a long time because you can't really support yourself on an acting career a lot of times. So I was also in healthcare. So that was like my full-time job. And then I started doing healthcare marketing, and, it was like, okay, it's paying the bills, money's great. But I don't know, there was always something missing. And my husband always has this question: if you won the lottery, what would you do? If you never had to worry about money again, what would you do? And I never really had an answer. But the answer was always in the back of my mind. I was just always afraid to say it. I didn't know if I wanted to go back there. Because once I get back, I know myself, like once I put my mind to something, it's really hard to change it. So I never wanted to go back to acting because I was like, I can't, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, like there's no way. And then I think I just, after my kids, I was like, I have to prove society wrong. Like I can do this. And I spoke to my husband about it, and he was so excited. He's like, yeah, you're going to do it. Like, you're good. You're really good at it. And so I was like, fine, that's it. I'm doing it. And so anyway, I got back into acting. So I started auditioning again, getting a few roles here and there. But I always knew it was bigger than that, right? Because I would audition. So now everything's online. So you're self-taping auditions. And these roles are just really bizarre. It's like horror movies. I'm like in my bedroom screaming, hiding from something I'm not seeing. It's just really bizarre. And I'm like, God, these roles are just not for me. They don't bring out my talent. They don't really express who I am as a person, as a mom, as an individual, as a woman, as an Indo-Caribbean. And I'm like, this is much bigger than me. And then I started writing, my own story of my own postpartum journey and parenthood and the craziness of that. I'm like, this can be a really good TV show. So I called one of my best friends who is also a writer, and her and I just dove in and we're like, yeah, let's do this. And we started writing, and we wrote our first TV series we wrote the pilot of it, and it's called It Takes a Village. And we're both, she's directing. So I met her through Flat Tire Productions 20 years ago, and she's going to direct it, and I'm producing it under my own brand. I decided to kind of walk away from Flat Tire and start my own. I know Frankie would have loved me to sort of carry on his legacy, but if I know him well enough, he wants me to make my own legacy. So I want to do that. And so I started See Beyond Studios just this year. And we are starting our production in June. June 1st is the first day of shooting. We're so excited. We're casting right now. I think we've gotten about 85% of the cast. We've gotten some really great talent. We're still looking for kind of the two of the main lead roles, which are Indo-Caribbean actors, but that seems to be a bit difficult to find. I have no doubt that we will find it. So that's it. So I'm an official filmmaker and actress again, and you can see from my smile, like I can't stop smiling. It's just waking up in the morning. It makes me so excited to do what I'm doing and to follow this again.
Absolutely love your story and your journey, and it's just, I mean, I'm obviously a creative myself, so I resonate with that. But just listening to you makes me emotional because I know it's hard, and especially from what you've been through. You mentioned very briefly in between there a lot of the difficulties and the challenges, which I know probably brought you to enduring through exhaustion in a lot of ways. And are those things kind of tied into your story that you've written?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, parenthood in general is, like we talked about, right? It's just exhausting. But, with It Takes a Village, when you go through something like becoming a parent, you lean on your village a lot to help, right? So your grandparents, or the grandparents, your parents, your friends who do come and support you. But I think, there's that saying, it takes a village to raise a child, but I think it takes the right village to raise a child, right? So, because you have all of these different perspectives coming in that, your grandparents or your parents have a very ancient way of thinking, if you want to say that. Raising kids the way we want to raise kids today is not the way they did, right? So, like, I don't punish my kids ever. They don't ever get in trouble. If they're throwing a tantrum, we go to another room, we sit down with them, we figure it out, we calm them down, we figure out what's happening. And then when it's safe to come back to play with brother, because if he's hitting brother, we'll bring him back, right? But we don't punish our kids. I don't believe in it. As kids, we were punished. And it was like, you're sort of putting a kid in a room all by themselves to sort of get over this thing that they don't know what's really happening to them, because they're babies, they're little, they're learning. And so, you start analyzing what that village is like, which is exhausting, right? Because it's easy to just say, Mom, come, just help. And not to say my mom's amazing, but, let's just say it's Mom, come help. But then Mom's not really doing it the way I want it done. So then, I'm not going to call Mom next time, right? But, or cousin or whomever, right? So you end up doing all of the work yourself, which is exhausting. So throughout the series, you're going to see Alex and Reshma, who are the couple that we follow throughout this journey. They're going to become parents, and they're going to sort of start seeing how their villagers are interacting with their kids as well as them, and analyzing that. Like, not sure if that's the right thing to be doing. And then Reshma, she's an Indo-Caribbean woman. Alex is a Caucasian man. But for Reshma, she doesn't know how to stand up to her mom. And she's going to have to find that voice, right? Because of her kids. It's just going to be an interesting dichotomy to see them exhausted but still trying to be the best that they could be through the exhaustion. It's going to be interesting. And then watching your villagers learn. So it's not, one of the things I say with It Takes a Village, it's not about like analyzing people and saying, you're bad, get out of my life. No, it's, here's a better way or a different way of doing things. Like maybe teaching Mom, instead of yelling, can we try this? Instead of taking out the belt, Saj, we know what that means, again, kind of like, let's try something else, and for me as a mom, that's kind of the way it's been. It's educating the older generations to help them learn, but even educating us, because a lot of the advice or the way we know how to do things are based on what was sort of brought down to us and taught. So one great example I like to use is like, you come over to visit Mom. She just comes home from the hospital. She just got her from the hospital. And you walk in, you wash your hands, and you grab the baby, right? You want to hold the baby. That's beautiful, right? But I think you should walk into the house, wash your hands, and be like, hey, Mom, you got some dishes to do? Got some laundry to fold? Like, to me, that's more of a help. Like, let Mom have her moment with her baby, because she probably hasn't had a moment with the baby all day. Or just simply ask, like, what do you need from me? Truly, what do you need from me right now? And I think that's ways our village can show up for us in a way better way. aside from Reshma and Alex, there's another character, Vishal, which is Reshma's brother. He's going through some depression based on some generational trauma. And he too starts looking at his village. And through therapy, his therapist helps him think about, okay, who are you surrounding yourself with? And because there's a saying, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you what your future looks like, kind of thing. So, he has to analyze. So he's not a parent, but even as an individual, he has to analyze who he's surrounding himself with, because in order for him to heal, he has to make sure he's got the right people around him. So it takes a village as it's a broad topic, and it talks about a lot of different things that we all sort of go through in life, and that we really have to think about who we have around us. Mm-hmm. And again, it's not about letting people go and saying, at some point, I think, yes, if people are toxic, you have to let them go. But it's also about retraining and helping our society understand how they can support parents as well as other people just going through mental illness. Sorry, that was a lot.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And I think, it resonates so much with us, because what we're building with Friday Feels and your happy hour is, and we talk about this a lot, is finding your tribe. What is this community? As a working professional, as a human, who do you resonate with? And, it's exactly like you're saying, whatever energy you're in is what you're resonating with out in the world, is what you're attracting to yourself in the world. I really firmly believe that. So, yeah, I think we just, we feel you and we feel your film coming, or your TV series, and we're super excited to watch it. And I think it's beautiful that you spotlighting these critical issues that do drain us, and it's where you place your energy and how you manage that. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I think, what's most interesting to me, there's a lot of things there. There's just so much there. It's like, I don't even know where to start, but unpacking from that box. But yeah, I really like that you're showcasing the Indo-Caribbean culture. I think it's something that's not very mainstream as a fact. It's not. We're not very representative in many offices, rooms, screens, etc. And, personally, that's something that I tried to do my part of, but life happens and we try to be authentic on here. And so I'm happy to always, showcase other talent, whatever that might be, that is Indo-Caribbean. And so really was super excited to have you on here. But I also think that even for me, like growing up, I grew up away from the West Indian culture. We grew up really far out in Long Island, because Debbie and I actually share a cousin. That's how we figured out that we were like extended cousins. And
we're all related.
Yeah. And it's just really funny, though. I was thinking about that, is like, when I met you for the first time, obviously, like Steph and Rich know each other. And so I'd seen Rich a few times. I knew Rich. And then finally I met Debbie. I heard Debbie, but I didn't know. And I just said, like, you look really familiar, but I couldn't like put my finger on it. And that's such a weird thing even to think about now, is like, we actually knew each other when I was much younger. And it's amazing that I even remembered, right? Like, it's because I was so young, like life, it's been like 10 years. How do you just randomly meet somebody and then be like, you look familiar? Like, I could have been completely wrong. And then we eventually figured out, she was like, I have cousins where you live. And I'm like, well, they're definitely related to me because we don't have any brown people over there. And that's how we remembered. Like, I remembered. And then it came back. I was like, oh my goodness. And so I think that, growing up like that, even going to school, we both went to NYU. I went as an undergrad. I know you went as your master's. We're not very prevalent there either. Like in college, in that college, I would more associate with just Indian people because they were the closest to the culture, and had to do a lot of explaining, like, why do you look Indian but you don't? Like, which state are you from? How do you not know which state you're from in India? Like, one guy told me, he was like, I can track back like 13 generations based on my last name. And I'm like, Well, actually, all my aunts and uncles have different versions of the same last name, so there's no way that I could track back any sort of generation past like two. But it is a really beautiful culture. And I would say that, you know, getting more back into it and exploring that, and through carnival, through other things, and not just carnival, but like the food, the people, etc. It is really beautiful. And it's sad that it's not more mainstream. But I guess as we go out into the world, it's on us, right, to do those things. So
That's right.
we're super excited to kind of have you on here and talking about, I mean, all the things that you talk about are things that resonate in some way. I don't need to be a mom to have it resonate. The topics that you're talking about, or, you know, parenting your parents, sharing your point of view, all those things are, you know, things that we, and maybe in other cultures it's the same, I don't know, but it is really reassuring to kind of hear people talk about it. And I mention it to my parents a lot of times. I'm like, well, I'm standing up for my boundaries. You should be proud of that. Don't tell me like why, you know, why I should go to this person's house, why I should still be nice to them. Like, they were obviously rude, and they obviously like don't have my best interest at heart. And I mean, you know, we talked about this earlier on in the podcast, where it's like everybody comes with their own point of view. Maybe the things that they come with have protected them, and so they're just trying to share it. But when you see people in that light, you don't get as offended, but you also choose to kind of make your own decision.
And I think that's what's beautiful about our generation, is that we're finally questioning it. We're finally putting our foot down and saying no. And that's beautiful, right? Like, yeah, we grew up like, it was almost like you just have to be quiet. Don't ruffle feathers, stay in the background, don't speak up to your elders. Like, you're just not allowed to have an opinion. And I struggle with that now a lot, because I'm always afraid of conflict. I cry, you know, when people are trying like mean to me. And it's and I have like a best friend who's the complete opposite, and I love her. And I'm like, I want to be like you. And she's like, I want to be like you. So we try to figure out how to be like each other, right? A little bit, you know, it's like, I'm so done with it, you know. And then I think being a mom just kind of like gave me some energy, like, because I do not want anyone doing that to my kids. So it's kind of like you find your voice, and that's hard in our culture, man, to do. I literally just avoid people now. Like, if you're coming in with some negative juju, like, you're probably not going to hear from me. I'm not going to call you back. I'm probably going to disappear. But yeah, I'm so done with it. But I think what's beautiful about, you know, we talk a lot about Indians being on TV. You know, Nicole and I were talking about this before you came on. It was like, we tend to look at Bollywood. Like, that's where we see our culture on TV as Indo-Caribbeans, right? It's Indian. It's not West Indian though, right? It's not Trinidadian, because being Trini is so much more than that, right? But we at least see that, and I think that satisfies people. With It Takes a Village, even though the entire cast is not West Indian, it's just, you know, the main family, and even her husband is Caucasian, and I did that on purpose for many reasons. But I can go into that in a little bit later. But like, only three of the characters are really West Indian, and there's two aunties that are really funny, and you know, they bring sort of the West Indian humor into the show. But like, I want to show that culture. You know, I want to show how vibrant it is, how fun it is. I want to talk about the food. Like, everything you're saying, Saj, just means so much to me, because we're so proud to be Trinis. Like, we're so proud from where we're from, and our culture gives us life, and we just want to share that with the world. And you're right, we don't see it, and to the depth we need to. So I'm excited to bring it on. I'm also excited to like bring these topics like that nobody wants to talk about. Mental health. My son's going through depression, you know, postpartum, like all of these things nobody talks about. And the cool thing is, another aspect of Reshma and Alex is that we get to see Alex's journey as a father going through fatherhood, because we never talk about that aspect. I remember when I became really vocal about how deep my postpartum depression was, my husband started opening up and saying how hard it was for him too. And I was so deep into my own depression, I couldn't even see what he was going through. We were fight all the time. And he was going through so much because he was trying to hold it all down while I figured out if I even wanted to be alive today. Like that's how bad it was at times, right? So he was trying to hold down the babies and figured like the whole first year of their life, he literally took care of them. I didn't even want to see them. I didn't even think they liked me because every time I went near them, they would cry. And it was like, I couldn't, it was just like, I don't know what to do. So he took care of them. And he's like, it was so hard for him. And we didn't get to see his part. So it's like, we really want to highlight that as well. And I think part of healing as a human is just healing ourselves. We need to, if we can't see the problem, maybe within ourselves, if we see it on TV, maybe we can identify it, right? And it's like kind of like you see a show and you're like, oh my God, that's me. Oh my God, that's me. And then and it's good because then you can look inside and say, okay, if that's me, how could I be better? And that's what the show is. That's what we're planning to do with the show. It's not just about trauma. It's about how to heal from the trauma. So these characters are going to take action into how to fix their village or how to find the healing pathways and reconciliation to then move forward for their children, for the future, and all of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And you're reminding me along my own creative journey, I've realized that I tend to create songs, write songs, produce certain songs in a certain way at certain times that I need them most. I can share in another day, but I wrote a song for Gracie, my dog, and many years ago. And when I actually produced it, I couldn't sing it. I was so emotional. I was crying all the time until I couldn't cry anymore and I could sing it and I could produce it and whatever else. And I've realized creativity is a beautiful thing in that way that when you are nudged to do something, it's your inner self going, this is going to heal you. This is going to help you.
Yeah.
But more than that, it's going to help other people in the world too, because they feel that energy exactly like you say. So that's a beautiful thing that you get to share that with the world. And I know a lot of people are probably going through these things and not talking about it, feeling very lonely and feeling exhausted. So
Yeah, I feel like that's what drove me to do it mostly. One of my best friends went through a very similar postpartum journey, and I think one day she called me and she said, "I'm literally getting through today because of your stories. Thank you for sharing." And I was like, "Okay, I've got to do something about this. This is just not right." Like so many moms, when I finally started speaking up, said that they too felt a bit of what I did, and while we hope no one goes through it the way I did, at least. And that's usually the way I start a conversation with like a new mom or a mom to be. Look, I hope you don't go through this, but I'm just going to tell you my journey. And I'm going to tell you that it's okay if you go through this, right? That you're going to be okay in the end, but it's a long journey. My postpartum lasted over 2 years. Everyone says fourth trimester, right? By the time you give birth, 4 months later, you're fine. That is BS. There's parts of me that's still going through it, but I think I've healed a lot of what I've went through. But it's exhausting. And what you just said, Nicole, is so funny. I'm literally writing the script, bawling my eyes out because I'm feeling it. There's certain parts in it because I'm actually the lead actress. I'm playing Reshma, and there are certain pieces of it when I rehearse, I need to take a step back. I'm like, I can't go there, even though it's beautiful for the character, but it's an emotional journey. I remember sitting there cracking up one second, writing, the mom, because she's really funny, her lines, and then bawling the next because I'm writing Reshma's lines. And it was such an emotional journey. But I remember listening. I listened to a lot of different, advice from different writers, and I don't remember his name, but he said, if you're going to tell a story, tell it as authentic as possible. Even if you don't think anyone else understands what you're saying or what you're going through, just tell it as authentic as possible, because I guarantee you there's someone out there that's going to say, I get it. And that's what I did with the story. It's so me to some extent, right? Because it's a little exaggerated as well, but it's a lot of it is just my story. So it's really good. Yeah.
Well, I think now people are just kind of more... There was an article, I don't remember where it was, but it was saying that people of our generation will actually never be the risk takers that our parents were, in terms of going to a new land, not knowing anyone, figuring out how to I think it was second generation immigrants will never be as big in terms of, it wasn't necessarily risk taking, but they don't have to deal with the like intense dichotomy that their parents had to, where it's like you leave your whole culture and come to a whole new one. And then you have to like build your life from the ground up. A lot of us will not move too far from our hometown, or will still be closer than where they had to move from. We will be more secure because we would have education and we will make more, etc. We will probably find more stable jobs, etc. And so I think it's just really interesting what it takes for people to kind of go through that. If you ask me right now to like go move to Australia, set up brand new with no money, not knowing anyone who even knew what I look like or what my food was or my culture. I mean, that's the beauty of like, sharing, and you can identify, I took a cultural communication class in school, and they were basically like, stereotypes are a way for people to understand other people. Like, you see a Jamaican person, you know that they like that culture likes jerk chicken. It's not like you're going to tell your friend, oh, are you making jerk chicken today? It's actually a way to identify with people before it gets like to the point where it's a negative stereotype or a positive one. And so it's really interesting to me, kind of like this intersection of cultures and what we actually take out of it. And I think like our generation, we are now in the position where we're not necessarily hiding or marginalizing. We're actually celebrating our authenticity. And it's because everyone around us also is celebrating, right? The Polish person, the Danish person, like you want to know what's going on. And obviously, not to make a generalized statement, but I think so many of the things that our parents' generation went through, I mean, I'm sure it was very difficult for them with their parents, right? They went through something completely different than their parents did, just like we're going through some completely different, and being able to resonate with them, right? They're not like in the cane fields having 12 kids going back to work. Like they'd managed to not do that. So now it's our turn to kind of show them what the next frontier is. And I'm sure even our kids will be, even different than we are. And so I think like a lot of the, shining the light on the traumas and the mental, that was not something that people probably wanted to showcase because they were just busy. Like you said, when you're going through your own things, you don't see everything else around you. And, my parents, like, I think I talked about this on here before, but they'll always be like, oh, like, what are you wearing to this? Oh, did you have on makeup? And I'm just like, this is not the point. Like, who cares what I'm wearing and like what I look like? Like, what about my brain?
Right.
Or my feelings or like other stuff. But, I see now that I'm like getting a little older, I see a little bit more of that side of it. But I think it's really important for people to just keep pushing with authenticity, whatever that is. You don't have to be, a marginalized culture that doesn't see yourself everywhere to do that. I think KJ mentioned it on the last episode where she said something like, if you don't lead with authenticity, people can't find you. They don't know where, they can't identify, they can't go with you, they can't be led by you, they can't lead with you, they can't be inspired by you in the same way because you are not showing up as your true self. And so I think it's a really important message, as we go out and break boundaries, and not to make it sound really regal. It's not fun sometimes doing those things.
No, it's not.
It's not easy, and it's not necessarily noble, as like we can say it and it sounds like, oh, great, you guys are breaking boundaries. It doesn't feel that great when you're breaking a boundary that's been held for a long time, or a barrier, or your whole life moves in a certain way and then you completely change the dynamics. That doesn't feel good initially, but something kind of pushes you along. And so, our hope is when people listen to the podcast that they can think for themselves, similar to your movie. You think for yourself after you watch it, well, if they can do it, I can do it. Well, okay, I see how someone has done X, Y, Z. So the next time it kind of shows up for me in my life, maybe I think twice about how I would respond.
Yeah. And Nicole, I think you mentioned before too, like you're a world traveler, like you're just a, what did you call it? A global citizen. So I can imagine like how it is for you, like with the, like even in your culture, right? Because you're South African, and we talked about this previously. It was like, entertainment, like what we're trying to do today, even with your culture, I'm sure completely different, right? The past generations, like it's really our generation that's really like identifying it and saying that it exists, and now we need to like fix it.
Yeah, it is. And it's, it's interesting like listening to you guys coming from that perspective, because I'm also in this weird journey of being a global citizen, kind of doing exactly what you were saying. So I was taking myself into different places, not knowing anyone, and like planting myself there. And at least here I can kind of speak French, but a lot of people don't really know my home language of Afrikaans. Like when I share my songs, or people are like, Afrikaans, is that a language? I'm like, are you sure it's a language? I'm like, I grew up with this language. What do you mean? Are you sure? And so there's so little knowledge about this beautiful expressive language out there. That's this mix of things too. And so Swartcut Studios was really the start, exactly like for you, seeing beyond what is on the face. Swartcut is about empowering authentic art and showcasing South Africa a lot too. But any voice that needs to be heard, amplifying that in the world. So very excited to also
Yeah.
work with you on that offline. But yeah, no, it is. It really resonates true for me.
Yeah, and I think, Taj, to what you just said, all of the generations before us went through their own, right? Like I think previously to our great grandparents coming to Trinidad or being indentured servants being brought to Trinidad. It's kind of like every generation that I mean, that's where I almost stop, because I don't know anything before that, right? Like I just know when they came and then everything that happened after. But like that generation came to somewhere new and started a whole new life. And then our parents, at some point, our parents chose to come here and start a new life. And I think that we're doing the same thing, even though we're not physically moving somewhere. We're changing the way they did things into a sort of a new way of doing things. And I think is just hopefully just progressing humanity forward in a positive direction. So it's almost a beautiful story about how that all works and intertwines. I actually wrote a short on something similar. It's about a young girl. She's an Indo-Caribbean American, and she has to fill out a college application that as ethnicity comes up, and she's like, I don't know what to pick. And she asks her mom, and her mom's like, just pick other. And she's like, but I'm not an other. What are you talking about? And she goes through this whole journey about like, I'm not an other. She visits the school of her dreams, but then there's all these associations, but there's no association for her. So she tries to go to visit the Indian American Association, but they ask her that question, Saj, where in India are you from? And she's like, I don't know, and she doesn't fit in, and she doesn't fit in anywhere. And she goes through this journey, and then she has a dream of her great grandmother who came to Trinidad to start this life. And they have a discussion, and her grandmother tells her, I came here, I started it. You are the future. Like you take it beyond what I can do. And, if you don't feel like you're an other, change it, and it's just this little short thing that I wrote, and I've never done anything with it. It's just sitting there. But now you're talking about it, I'm like, maybe I should actually do something about this piece. Yeah, it was an emotional piece for me, because obviously we can all identify with this, having to check other, because we're not an other.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Were you part of the ones that we used to check Pacific Islander? Because you're just like, I don't know, those people are kind of brown. Maybe that's
No, I didn't. People would always tell me to do Asian, and I'm like, I'm not Asian. Like I'm not, I'm not that.
That's so funny. I remember filling out my college applications and literally going through that. And I remember NYU was the only one that had Caribbean as an option. And I was like, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, but the Caribbean part, I think, is even under the Black, right? So it's Black, and then it's different types, and then it's Caribbean. So, which is still good, right? Like at least we have a box to check, but it's still not 100% correct for who we are. And it's just, it's just one of those. But again, exhaustion, right? Like we're trying to do so much. All three of us on this podcast, like we're trying to do so much, and you're just exhausted because you're trying to survive, do the right thing, raise a family, go to school, start businesses, build a life, but then also change the way things are happening because it's just not the right way. Like we just have to lead with love versus, the past where it's always been power, and we're trying to like just have a whole completely different future for the next generation, which is exhausting. So exhausting.
It is. And, I think we've spoken about this a bit, Saj, as well. It's like, I think if you're being yourself in the world, if you're really listening to that voice and you're being authentic, then, and Simon Harry also said this a few weeks back, if you're following that strength, then that's the thing that you will have perseverance in. That's the thing that you will be able to wake up for, and if you're doing all these things but then you have a job that you don't like, then it gets really bad. so I love that you are doing what you want to do, what your desires are. And I'm quite curious, like, what has been, you've obviously had quite a village along your way as well, and what has been the best professional advice you've received?
I don't really get a lot of professional advice. I think people just let me be a lot. My husband gave me one. I have to say that I think I live by now. I'm a perfectionist and it has to be perfect before I hit send. Like I'll sit and write an email that's 3 lines for an hour because it's not perfect. And he at one point said, you need to get it to 80%. He's like, if you think something is 80% there, let it go. It's never going to be perfect. So 80%, let it go. And I did that with my script because I honestly would never finish it. So at 80%, I was like, okay, this is pretty good. Maybe it can be better, but I'm going to let it go. And I let it go. And that was it. And so now I live my whole life by an 80-20 rule. As long as I can get it right 80% of the time, I'm allowed to mess up 20% of the time. Even with parenting, it's like, as long as I'm not screwing up these kids 100% of the time, 80% of the time I'm getting it right, I can screw them up 20% of the time, because you end up being so hard on yourself to be the best at everything. You just can't be, right? And then you're not really supposed to be because life is about mistakes. And so, 80-20 rule. I think that is the best advice I've ever gotten. It's helped me meet deadlines and get through things very easily. Even in like health wise, 80% of the time I eat great. 20% of the time I do my cheat meals and all that, good stuff, all that yummy food, Saj, that we have, all the doubles and all the things. So I think that's probably the best advice I've ever gotten.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I can do more of 80-20 in my life. So thank you for the reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say, where do you see yourself in a year?
Oh, gosh. So we are in April. It's April 9th. We will finish filming episode 1, possibly even episode 2, packaging that up, shooting. Hopefully, once we put that together, we want to then get investors and producers to take a look at the show, see if they like the concept, to then get funding for the rest of the season. So, I'd like to sing in a year. Some big producer picks this up and it's gold, right? It's what every filmmaker's dream is. So that would be great. But what I do see definitely is a theater production. So I already started writing a script about our ancestors coming to Trinidad and them assimilating to this brand new culture and bringing out and showing the world what Trinidadian culture is like on stage. So I've already it started off as a book. And then my good friend said, why don't you make it into a play? And I was like, that's a really good idea. So it's going to turn into that. So by next year, it's either that script is going to be in production, like really, really getting there, maybe even finalized. I think that's a lot of pressure to put on myself. But that script is going to start becoming live and figuring out what to do there. So a film production this year, a theater production next year.
Oh, so many exciting things.
Yeah. And I wanted to have all of our wonderful dancing, our music, Indian music, soca music, African music, all of it put together, everything that makes us Trinidad, everything that makes our culture so pretty and so beautiful. So I'm excited.
Yeah, let us know.
When I visit there, you guys both have to come so you can show me around.
Yes.
Great time.
It's always a good time. My goodness.
Awesome. Well, I think it's been that, thank you so much for just sharing your story and all the things that you're working on, and for progressing in that way and showing others that you can. That's a big thing that we like to promote on here. And usually around this time, we do something which is called the Gem of the Week, which is just what is filling your cup this week, what is enabling and empowering you to be a successful working professional in the world. So, Nicole, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. This week's really been about owning desires, and it's very apt for the things we're talking about today. So I feel like the universe has really been pushing me a lot to go like, hey, what is it that you want? What is it that you really need? And sometimes that's really hard, talking about how we brought up societally and generationally and everything personality wise as well. I find quite hard to say, this is what I need. How can you support me in that, and these are my desires. I'm really going to go for them full on. And so, yeah, so it's really been a week of owning that. It's really been a week of speaking that, even just silently to myself, and then being able to share them with the world when it's ready. So, and then also connecting with really cool communities, talking about all these communities that are global. I found a really cool community called Wi-Fi Tribe. Check it out for anyone who's listening. And also another one called Internations. Massive communities out there doing amazing things, and yeah, just really vocal around. And it feels quite nice to have some people in France quite close going, hey, let's meet up and do some cool things. So yeah, it's been a great week of self-communication and connectivity, I'd say. So yeah. What about you, Saj?
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's always exciting when you kind of see other people, like other communities, and like, ooh, who are these people? Like, here's my tribe. Where have you been? For me this week, I've just been really head down, just doing a lot of work that I feel like I've been making lists in my head for I don't know how long, now actually checking off some of them and really just having the energy to do that and kind of trusting myself, I would say, which is a great sentence in itself, sort of kind of trusting myself. But just, I do a lot of businesses with partners, and some of them are, the reason you choose partners, I would say, is you think that they have strengths that you don't, or you have an aligned mission, etc. So for me, I think I've been really interested to hear their point of view, but also trusting myself, like, okay, well, my point of view is also valid. And, I bring something to the table. I think it's just a really different dynamic when you're building something on your own or with a small group versus working at a company where you're really shining to at a company to prove your worth, and as an individual or like as a team leader, I feel like it's very much about the individual, whereas when you're working on something, it's very much about the product or the output. And so it doesn't matter which person it came from as long as it kind of goes where it needs to go. And for me this week, it's been more about kind of asserting like, okay, this is actually where I want it to go. This is actually what I want it to do. Rather, because after a while of not doing that for a while, you end up with something totally different. That's not even where you started. So just kind of course correcting and standing up and being like, okay, this is how I actually feel about it. This is actually going in a totally different direction, and speaking up. And it's also, I will say, it's been easier for me. Like I think I was bouncing around it for a little while, but when I actually did it, I was like, oh, this is actually easier. This is how I really feel. This is what I actually want. It didn't feel like as much resistance as I thought I would originally, kind of defending my idea, or I didn't feel like relief. I just felt like, yeah, this is the way it is supposed to be done. Let's talk about it and see how we can move forward. And that's a difference for me, is just like doing it without a negative conflict. Like conflict doesn't have to be negative, is a big thing that I'm learning on this journey. It can just be a difference of opinion, and let's just talk about like how to get where we need to go. I think that's easier for me in other areas, but business wise, when it's your own businesses, that's been a difficult one. So that was my week. What about you, Debbie?
Man, with this whole eclipse and everything else, I feel like it's just been a lot about change. Sort of like leaving my past behind and not looking back, right? And not saying that I should have done this, I could have done this, all of that. And it's also about finding my voice. I went through the last couple of weeks, it's been a little bit of a challenge just standing up for myself. And that's hard for me, right? Again, we talked about this before, like this culture of ours that doesn't allow you to do that. And standing up for myself has been a big part of the last couple of weeks for me. Standing up for what I believe in and not being scared to share how I'm feeling. And I've really powered through that. And I was just smiling the other day because I was like, you go, girl. So it's felt so empowering. And I'm getting emotional thinking about it because I'm a completely new person, and that has really been what's filling my cup lately. And like to your point, like I've always been that too, where in corporate, you just conform, right? Like someone else says something, you're like, okay, fine. Like, they dismiss an opinion of yours or something like that. But when it's your own and you have this passion and you're like, well, I'm doing this obviously because I know what I'm doing. You have to trust yourself, and you really have to trust that. We talked about authenticity, like this is the way I want to do things, and this is the way it's just going to have to happen that way, right? But also being open to say, like, for example, like my dear friend Alicia, who's my director, I trust her 1,000% to make sure that she gets the casting right. So it's like I totally gave her that, like, do your thing, girl. If there's something that we're like, oh, we're not sure about this person, we'll come together on it, right? But if she says this is what she wants, it's like, it's your vision, bring it to life. So it's also trusting the people that are in your life. So building that village that allows me to have this new voice, that allows me to be my authentic self, has been a really big part of who I am today. So yeah, I think it's just change. It's change. It's not looking backwards. It's building this new life, this new village, and then finding my voice and living by my authentic self. And that's really been what the last couple of weeks are. And it's exciting because when I start thinking that way, I can just see opportunities present. Like it's just, things are just coming to me, and it's like, oh my God, it's actually, it's all happening. And it's you are what you think. And that's such a true thing, right? It's like, you think negative things going to happen. But if you're so gracious for what you have and really think positive and all the good things that you're meant to have, right? We're all meant to have amazing things. You'll just see those things coming little by little, and that's really what life has been lately, and it's beautiful. And being on this podcast is just that. It's another thing that has filled my cup this week because I've met you both. Well, Saj, we've known each other forever. I've just met a new friend, Nicole, and I'm can't wait to connect with you, offline and see what we can do together. But like, that's it. It's just like the universe is just spinning around me, and it just feels so good.
I love it. And likewise, it's been so wonderful to get to know you. I'm so grateful as well for the new friend and connection because, I feel like we have so much resonance in the things we're doing in the world. And yeah, and just also to add to what you're saying, I think it's so beautiful that when you're finding your voice, the more you find your voice, the more you kind of build that village and tribe. I found that when things are not aligned to that energy, you realize it quicker, you adjust quicker. It sounds to me like we all have had that kind of week, just really standing strong, speaking up. And so I guess on that note, we can ask our audience out there, our listeners, how are you navigating pursuing your passions? How are you navigating standing up for yourself and enduring through exhausting times, but, moving through? And please share with us. We'd love to know.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. I knew you guys would definitely connect on a million different creative levels. Because as you can tell, the creativity of Friday Feels is mostly Nicole. But I can contribute on the authenticity side. So it's been awesome to have you on, Debbie. Please share with our audience, how they can find you and connect with you.
Yeah. So, I mean, God, I have my Instagram pages. So we have See Beyond Studios on Instagram. It takes a village as well. It takes a village underscore TV show, and then my own personal site, DebbieAnn underscore official. So that's like my acting. You can follow my journey through my acting career as well. It's so many different. You have to create a handle for everything. It's like, oh my God, I have so many Instagram handles. It's making my head spin. But yeah, or you can literally just email me. Debbie Ann Seemungal at Gmail or cbeyondstudios at Gmail. If you are interested in film, theater, even if you're not an actor and you want to try, please. That's how we all started, right? We had a passion and we did it and we went for it. We'll teach you. That's what I've been doing this for 20 years more. So we're here. So if you are that, visit my pages. You can see what roles we're casting for. Please, we'd love to meet you. Even if you just want to be part of our background crew, just to be on set, that's even amazing. If you're a writer and you want to write something, we can write something together. We can produce something together. So yeah, really exciting stuff. And thank you guys so much for having me. Saj, I do want to say I'm so proud of you. I've known Saj since she was a little girl. And funny thing, I don't even know if I met your siblings when I was, they might have been babies,
No,
like
they were.
babies.
I don't even think
right?
they were around. I
don't even think they were born. I'm not even
11
sure if they were born.
when they were
We
born.
used to babysit Saj. My cousin and I used to babysit her. So so proud of you. It's so amazing that we got to connect again after all these years. But I'm proud of this podcast. I'm proud of what you're doing, and just keep it up. We're changing things, right? We grew up with one sort of mentality, but I think we're changing it now, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. I think it's on us now. We're like at the age where it's like, okay, well, it's not the parents anymore. We're actually those people.
We're the parents. Listen.
We need to be the ones that are doing it. We're like, okay, I guess it's us then.
Yep.
But yeah, I look forward to all the great things that we're all on the path to. And we encourage everybody that's listening to reach out, not only to us, but also to Debbie if this is something you're really interested in doing, or just think you might be interested. I mean, I've learned so much by just, talking to people, really trying so many different things. And so really excited to see, all the great things that come out from Debbie Ann Official, and hopefully some cool stuff with Nicole and with Freddie Feels. And
yes, definitely. Can't wait. I'm so excited.
Yeah. It's nice when you find your tribe. I will leave everyone with that and just say it is really nice. It's really reassuring. Sometimes the journey is not super easy. You don't know because you don't have a roadmap. But it is nice when you find people who have similar goals and you can work towards that. And thankfully, I have Nicole and Ricky to do those things with. And I'm sure you're also building your kind of whole village, Debbie. So it's really exciting to see that.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. Well, we'd love to hear from you guys. Remember to tag us using hashtag These Friday Feels to share your stories, and listen to us on all your favorite platforms. And to work with us, have us broadcast Friday Feels from your space and organize your next workcation or offsite, reach out to us at hello@friday-feels.co.
And next week, we'll be switching it up a bit and having a young professional and a dear friend, Lauren Muir, on the podcast speaking about her first corporate gig. So Lauren is an amazing young woman who loves all things fashion and has a cool job as a social media manager of a chocolate company. Yes, you heard right. We'll be chatting on her journey from social media influencer to manager, as well as her professional journey of enduring through exhaustion. But until next time, that is our mix. We've had so much fun mingling with you, and we wish you safe travels into your bed, into the night, and into this awesome weekend. So see you next week, and keep it real.